is the Executive Vice President and Chief Operations Officer, she's not chief, okay, for Dallas Area Rapid Transit, Carol Wise.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, you know it's not fair for me to fall into a statement. But I love her anyway, because I used to live in Columbus, and I worked for the Central Ohio Transit Authority, so I know we loved her dearly, and I still do. But first, giving all honor to God, because He is the source of all that I am and that I hope to be. And I want to thank COMTO and the committee for the selection of me to this high honor and privilege. And Carmen Garcia from DART, who nominated me for this award. I know it is with God's grace and favor that I received this award. It is also a privilege to be among the women that are being honored today, and all the other women that I now become a part of that honor roll who have received this award to date. So how did I get here? How did I end up in transportation? Well, I don't know if you remember the days, I'm an old head, so to speak, and I was at the University of Pittsburgh, and there was a magazine called The Black Collegiate. And in that magazine, there was an article called Minorities in Transportation, in Public Transportation. There was a lady by the name of Jenny Laster, who was the vice president of the American Public Transit Association, along with John Potts and Maxine Marshall, who worked for ATE Management Company. And if you remember that organization, you know how old I am. Right? So I read the article, and I had been riding public transit all my life. But I didn't know that they had other career jobs in public transportation. I just knew I hopped on a bus, and I saw the bus operator, and I occasionally saw a supervisor at the bus stop. And so I read the article with enthusiasm, and I said, oh, okay, I can get a job here, because this was my last semester of graduate school, right? And in your last semester, you're beating the pavement and trying to find a job. So I sent my resume to Jenny Laster. And Jenny Laster called me, and she said, you were the only person who reached out to us. One person, right? So Jenny said to me, I'm going to set up an interview for you at ATE, Management and Consultant Company. Of course, I didn't know anything about transit and didn't know anything about ATE management. So I go on the interview, and I thought the interview went well, and the interview was a little extended. And so I'm running to get back to the airport, and in the days when you're running down the hallways of the airport, they would hold the plane for you. Well, we know that doesn't happen anymore. So I'm huffing and puffing. I get on the plane, and I'm sitting in first class, mind you, right? And so I sit down next to this gentleman, and he said, so you're the reason why they're holding up the plane. And I'm trying to explain, I was on this job interview, and it ran over, and that's why I'm late. And so he started laughing. So we talked, because I'm flying from Cincinnati back to Pittsburgh, which is where I live. And that's only an hour flight. So I'm talking to this gentleman for the whole hour, and so he said, well, why are you late? And I'm like, well, I was on this job interview with this company called ATE Management Company. And he said, yeah, well, tell me about the interview. And so I thought it went well, and they're doing all this stuff in transportation, and I thought it went great, and, just going on and on and on. So about a month later, ATE management calls me and offers me the job. So when the HR person is talking to me on the phone, and they said, well, you know, you really should have known you had the job in the bag. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They said, well, you were talking to the CEO and the owner of the company on the airplane for a whole hour. So you know, is that serendipity, right? Or do you know when God has his hand on your life, right? And so I've been in trans for 34 years. And I've worked at 7 different transit properties and 2 consulting companies. And so it has just been an amazing ride for me because I have met so many people that have mentored me along the way, from Jenny Laster from APTA to Carmen Turner when I went to work at WMATA, who was the first black general manager, female, of a large transit property in the country, who took little old me, who hadn't even been with the transit company more than 2 years, and said, I'm going to mentor you. And taught me about and took us to COMTO meetings. In those days, you know, COMTO was kind of militant, you know, because it's not like it is today, where it's well accepted. You know, in those days, it was like, well, who's this black organization that's galvanizing all these people around the country? Who is this organization, right? And so Carmen would take 15 or 20 young people, minorities and women, and send them to transit conferences around the country. That was unheard of, you know. So there was a cadre of black young professionals at ATE that are still my friends today: Frank Martin, Paul Tolliver, Bobby Griffin, Will Scott, that have been in my life for over 30 years. You know, I mean, the friendships that you garner in this industry are for a lifetime. And you can pick up the phone and call them any day you need to call them. But also there is COMTO. COMTO mentored young people like me along the way, because I had the opportunity to sit with the pioneers of this organization, like Harold Williams and Reverend Jerry Moore and Carmen Turner, and listen to them in the room strategizing about how do we turn this public transit industry around to include minorities so that they could be inclusive. How do we get jobs beyond just bus operators? But we needed those too. How do we get board members? How do we get CEOs? How do we get technicians and professionals throughout this whole industry? And you know, it is just amazing to see COMTO now, from where we have come to this day. It is such an honor and a privilege to be here. You know, that whole experience put DNA in my blood, so to speak, to make me realize that I had a purpose and a role to make a difference in this industry. And so I have tried to do that at every transit property that I have gone to make sure, especially in operations, that I communicate to employees their importance and their value to the organization, and that we coach them along. Because people from the ranks can come up through the organization, like Bob Prince, to be the CEO of Boston, Massachusetts Transit Authority. And it is our responsibility to make sure that we do those types of things in the organization. While we're bringing new people in, we have to mentor and coach those employees wherever they are in the organization. And I have a program at Dallas Area Rapid Transit that's called the 5-Star Service Program. And a large part of that program is to coach, mentor, and have champions in the organization that will model the behavior and the dreams that we want of a transit organization. And to date, we have over 100 employees that have gone through that program, and it's a 2-year program. And it doesn't matter what level of the organization you are in. Whether you're a mechanic, whether you're a bus operator, whether you're an assistant vice president, they go through the same program and training. So, you know, when I was in the room when Reverend Jerry Moore was praying about this organization and for the leaders of this organization, you know, I was reminded the other day by a pastor that that prayers are forever. You know, I kind of knew that, but I forgot. You remember when your grandmother used to pray for you for your future? You know, that those prayers go up and they stay there forever, right? And so I stand here today on the shoulders of the many prayers and the sacrifices of those known and unknown. My work continues, and we are not done yet. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Law.